Hey everyone, it's me, Julian Greystoke, and 2020 is starting out strong. I already have my first 5-star book, and I'm really hyped about it. So let's talk about it, shall we? This book is The Bone Houses. This is the story about a girl who works as a gravedigger for her village. Their village is located next to a magical forest in which occasionally you will find these things called bone houses, which are zombies. But for the most part, the bone houses don't come into the village and everything is under control. However, eventually they do start finding their way into the village and wreaking havoc. And our main character decides that she needs to journey into the forest and into the mountain to find the ancient Cauldron of Life, which is the source of the magic that awakens the dead, and she needs to destroy it. Along with her is a newcomer to their village, a map maker, who was originally there to map the forest where the zombies are coming from, but he becomes embroiled in this whole thing with the bone houses, and soon he and she set out together to find the Cauldron of Life. Now, right away, this book had so many things to recommend it to me. Holy shit. I mean, obviously the zombie thing. But also, I didn't even know until I started reading that it was using Welsh mythology, which I love, and the characters are very much based in Welsh culture, and they even have Welsh accents, and I'm just like... If you're familiar with the Black Cauldron series, you might even get some vibes from that while you're reading this. But other things that came along to really recommend this book, they just kept piling up for me, the good things. There is chronic pain representation that I think was done super well. There is a soft boy romantic interest. There are sibling dynamics, and there's a goat. You guys, there's a goat in this book. This book was made for me. It's like, okay, so this author, who by the way has the same name as me, sat her ass down and clearly thought, what would be Julian's ultimate book? And then she wrote this, and I am so happy. Let's just keep talking about things that I loved about this book, and then I will, of course, talk about a few things that were less than perfect, because even if you love something, it's not going to be completely perfect. I really enjoyed the pacing of this book. I thought it was pretty solid. I was engaged all the way through and nothing really seemed to drag until towards the very end, but we might talk about that a little bit later, but nothing that put me off this book in the slightest. The craft of writing itself was on point. I loved the prose. There were some great quotes from this book, including, "He thought of her like the sea, beautiful and full of enough salt to kill a man." That's how I would like to be referred to from here on out, please. But so many great quotes. I kept hearing them and being like, oh, I love that. And I love that too. Naturally, the characters were a big draw for me. I especially loved the romantic interest, the guy, Ellis. He definitely had that soft boy archetype going for him, and he was adorable. And also, Ellis is a chronic pain sufferer, and I think that whole thing is done really well. There's none of that, his chronic pain made him so much stronger. It's just a part of his life that he has to deal with. It's not virtuous or evil. It's just there, it's present, it's part of his life. I loved the ending to this book, even if I did guess, and I did, what was going to happen and what the twist was going to be. I didn't mind, because it wasn't one of those twists where you're sitting there wondering why the characters hadn't figured it out. It made perfect sense why they hadn't figured it out, and I felt clever for having figured out the twist, rather than annoyed that I had figured out the twist. Obviously, I loved the zombies. I loved the zombie tropes that were used in a fantasy setting. I don't want to give too much away, but there were many zombie tropes that you might be familiar with, but when placed into this fantasy setting, it gave them a new twist, and I loved it. Also, this take on zombies, the bone houses, they were smart zombies, they were tool-using zombies, so while they didn't speak, they were intelligent enough to use weapons, which made them even more dangerous. I was also really starting to get worried as I read more and more books that maybe I just didn't ship characters together anymore, but holy crap, did I ship our two leads in this. And their romance is slow burn, it's naturally building, it's believable, it's not love at first sight. Ugh, I love it, you guys, I love it. Now let's talk about a few things, and there's only a few, that I didn't love about this book, but they definitely weren't enough to knock it down from 5 stars. I didn't love, without spoiling, what happened to the goat. It's not probably what you think happens to the goat, but I still didn't love what happened to the goat. I will say that the goat was very well done. There was a little bit of goat behavior that maybe wasn't as accurate, but there was a lot of accurate goat behavior, so I'll take it. Something did seem a little bit unrealistic after a little while. The bone houses are an interesting type of zombie. Even if you chop their head off, they kind of still keep coming. The only way to destroy them, basically, is to chop them into manageable pieces and then burn the pieces. And that's what our main character does when she encounters a bone house. She puts all the pieces in a big old bag and brings it to the forge to be destroyed, because that's the fire that's hot enough to destroy the body. And when more bone houses start coming out of the forest, she's having to do this more and more. And it becomes a little unbelievable that the villagers aren't taking her seriously about this when she's bringing in these consistent, like, bodies. Like, she's a grave digger. It's her job to dig graves, so why is she bringing so many people to the forge to be burned? Like, what's going on? I feel like the villagers might start to believe her about the bone houses a little bit sooner. And finally, while I love the characters, our main character is a little bit of a YA heroine trope. Especially toward the end when she really starts, like, fighting very competently. And it's built up, you understand why she's a fighter, but she gets to the point where you're like, okay, how are you this good though? She's still enjoyable, but she can feel a little flat because, like I said, she's kind of every YA heroine. And for this reason, I don't think The Bone Houses quite surpasses the Becca Cooper series as my favorite fantasy. Because in that series, the main character of Becca Cooper is more complex, I feel, than this main character. However, the character of Ellis, who is the male lead and whose voice we also get, does make up for it, in my opinion, by being fairly complex himself. And like I said, these things, while being complaints, I can 100% overlook because this book is so perfect for me. I can't even say, like, read it for sure, you'll love it. Because this book feels like it was tailored for me specifically. Now, it does have a pretty good score on Goodreads, so I guess other people are really loving it, but this is a gem that needs more love. So if any of what I have told you sounds interesting, please go read The Bone Houses. I will definitely be picking up other books by this author. This is the kind of book that I will now be holding all the fantasy that I read this year up to, and also I will be holding my own fantasy writing up to. This is the kind of book. Like, read this book if you want to know what kind of books does Julian hope to write one day. What kind of books is Julian hoping to publish? This kind of books. This feel, these characters, this creativity, this. Okay guys, did you read The Bone Houses? If you did, tell me what you thought of it. Tell me how much you loved it. Why is the goat your favorite character? I really feel like I need to write more books with goats in them now. I really feel like I have been slacking on my goat representation. I've got a lot of dogs and horses, but I need to write some goats. Anyway guys, I post new videos Mondays and Fridays. There's a lot of stuff on my channel already that you can check out if you want to. All the links to my social media are in the doobly-doo for ease of your clicking. If you want to support me over on Patreon, you can do so, where you'll get access to exclusive content not seen here on the regular channel. And I will see you guys again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye! Well, look at that. It's time for this month's patrons. This month we have Lennox, Amanda, Jenny, Jesper, Kim, Lisa, Ryakio, Sabby Panda, Sarah, Savvy, and Scribbling Cat. As usual, you guys, you rock my socks off.